Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, was born a slave in ancient Rome. Yet despite his harsh circumstances, he discovered a truth that still defines the art of inner peace, that freedom does not depend on external power, but on mastery over one's own mind. He taught that human suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. Pain, loss, and failure are inevitable, but our response to them is always a choice. Epictetus believed that true strength lies in accepting what cannot be changed, and focusing only on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and character. His philosophy is not theoretical, but deeply practical, offering a guide to remain calm in adversity, disciplined in chaos, and content with simplicity. Through his wisdom, we learn that peace is not found outside us, but within our ability to think rightly. Epictetus built his entire philosophy on one foundational idea, that peace begins when we learn to separate what is within our control from what is not. Our thoughts, our actions, our decisions, and our attitude are within our power. But external events, other people's behavior, and the outcomes of our efforts often lie beyond our reach. The problem is that most people live in reverse. They spend their energy trying to control the uncontrollable, while neglecting their own mind. Epictetus taught that by focusing only on what we can truly command, we free ourselves from frustration, anger, and anxiety. The weather, fortune, and the opinions of others are not ours to shape, but our response to them always is. This understanding transforms how we experience life. When we stop fighting the external world and start mastering our inner one, we discover a kind of freedom that cannot be taken away. To Epictetus, the cause of unhappiness was simple: wanting what we do not have. He believed that the more we desire, the more we suffer, because every unfulfilled want becomes a source of dissatisfaction. True peace, he said, comes from learning to desire only what is necessary, and to be content with what we already possess. In his view, pleasure is not found in abundance, but in sufficiency. When a person constantly chases wealth, recognition, or comfort, their happiness becomes dependent on things outside their control, but when one learns to enjoy simplicity, life itself becomes enough. Epictetus urged his students to examine every desire and ask, will this make me free, or will it make me a slave to wanting more? To desire less is not to deny life, but to reclaim it, to live with gratitude, clarity, and the quiet joy of needing nothing beyond the present moment. Epictetus taught that every obstacle carries within it the opportunity to grow stronger. Difficulty, for him, was not a curse, but a test of character, a mirror that reveals how well we understand ourselves. He reminded his students that no situation is inherently bad, it becomes harmful only when we respond to it with fear or resistance. A wise person, he said, uses adversity as a tool for training the mind. Pain builds endurance. Failure develops humility. Loss teaches acceptance. When we stop viewing problems as punishments, and begin to see them as teachers, every hardship turns into a lesson in resilience. This is the true Stoic transformation, turning what stands in the way, into the way forward. Life will always present challenges, but through discipline and perspective, we can turn struggle into strength, and suffering into wisdom. That is the essence of Epictetus' philosophy of growth. According to Epictetus, external events are neutral. It is our interpretation that gives them power. Two people can experience the same event, one falls into despair, the other remains calm. The difference lies not in the situation, but in the mind that perceives it. Epictetus taught that our first impressions are automatic, but our reactions are voluntary. Between stimulus and response lies the freedom to choose. To master this space is to master oneself. When anger arises, we can pause instead of reacting. When insulted, we can choose silence instead of retaliation. This self-control is not suppression, it is awareness. It means refusing to be ruled by impulses or emotions that cloud judgment. Life constantly tests our composure, but Epictetus believed that the wise person remains unshaken, like a rock against which the waves break. In mastering our reactions, we reclaim power over our peace. Epictetus warned that the desire for approval is one of the greatest barriers to freedom. When we depend on the opinions of others, we hand them control over our emotions. Praise lifts us, criticism crushes us, and in both cases, we lose stability. The Stoic path is different. It teaches us to live according to our own principles, guided by reason and virtue, not by applause or rejection. Epictetus advised his students to expect misunderstanding, even ridicule, from those who do not share their values. He said that true improvement often makes one appear foolish to the crowd, but that should never discourage a seeker of wisdom. To detach from others' judgments is to stand firmly within one's own moral compass. When we stop trying to be seen as good, and focus instead on being good, we become unshakable, free from the noise of opinion, and the chains of validation. Epictetus believed that the strength of a person's character is revealed not in comfort, but in hardship. He encouraged his students to practice voluntary discomfort, to occasionally deny themselves pleasures, to endure cold, hunger, or fatigue, not to punish the body, but to train the mind. The purpose of this practice was freedom, to prove to oneself that happiness does not depend on external ease. When we grow accustomed to a little hardship, life's unexpected difficulties no longer frighten us. The person who fears discomfort becomes a slave to it, but the one who faces it willingly becomes invincible. In the modern world, this lesson is more relevant than ever. Simple acts, waking early, avoiding unnecessary luxury, spending time in silence, strengthen the will. By challenging ourselves deliberately, we learn that resilience is not born from comfort, but from the discipline to remain calm when comfort disappears. Speech, for Epictetus, was not a tool for noise, but a measure of wisdom. He taught that the wise person speaks only when their words serve a purpose, to help, to guide, or to express truth. Idle talk, gossip, and argument were distractions that weakened focus and scattered the mind. In his school, students were encouraged to practice silence, to listen more than they spoke, and to choose every word with care. This discipline was not about repression, but refinement, the understanding that words shape thought, and thought shapes character. In a time when conversation is constant and attention rare, Epictetus' teaching reminds us that silence is strength. To think before speaking is to guard one's peace. Meaningful speech requires clarity, restraint, and sincerity. When we learn to speak less, but mean more, our words gain power, and our silence becomes a reflection of inner confidence and control. Epictetus often reminded his students of mortality, not to inspire fear, but to awaken awareness. He said that we should keep death in mind daily, because the thought of death gives life its true weight. When we remember that our time is limited, trivial concerns lose their hold on us. Petty arguments, envy, and greed begin to fade, replaced by gratitude for the moments we still possess. Death, to Epictetus, was not an evil, it was simply a natural part of existence, something no one can avoid, and therefore nothing to fear. He urged his followers to live each day as if it were their last, to act with integrity, and to value time above all possessions. By contemplating mortality, we learn how to live fully. For the Stoic, death is not an end but a reminder that every breath is a gift, and every action should honor it. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the idea of living in accordance with nature. For Epictetus, this meant accepting the order of the universe, and aligning one's life with reason, purpose, and virtue. Everything in nature follows its course. The sun rises, the seasons change, and life evolves, without resistance. Humans, however, often suffer because they fight against this natural flow, wishing that events were different from what they are. Epictetus taught that peace is found when we stop opposing reality and begin to cooperate with it. This does not mean passivity, but understanding, to act wisely within what is possible, and to accept what is beyond our control. Living with nature means embracing simplicity, moderation, and patience. When we harmonize our will with the rhythm of existence, life ceases to be a struggle. We no longer demand that the world change, we learn to change ourselves. Epictetus concluded that a wise life is one governed by principles, rather than by emotions. Emotions are fleeting, often driven by impulse or desire, while principles are steady and grounded in reason. To live by principle means to act from understanding, not reaction, to let virtue, not mood, direct behavior. Epictetus believed that those who follow their feelings become unstable, tossed about by every external event, but those who live according to a clear code, honesty, discipline, courage, and compassion, remain centered no matter what happens. This discipline builds integrity, doing what is right, even when no one is watching. In a world ruled by emotion and haste, this teaching is revolutionary. It reminds us that peace is not the absence of feeling, but the presence of wisdom. When principles guide our lives, we do not merely survive circumstances, we rise above them with strength and dignity. Epictetus taught that peace is not something to be found, it is something to be built, one thought and one action at a time. The world will always be uncertain. People will change, fortune will fade, and events will unfold beyond our control. But within us lies a space untouched by chaos, a place where reason, discipline, and virtue live. That is where true freedom begins. To live like a Stoic is to live with purpose, to act with integrity, and to meet each moment with calm awareness. Epictetus showed that even a man in chains could be freer than those who serve their own desires. His wisdom endures because it speaks to the core of human strength, the mastery of self. Remember this, the mind you rule is the life you shape. Guard it well, and peace will never leave you.